everyone, and welcome to the Asher Marketing Podcast. I'm Anthony Giuliano, and our guest tonight is Jason Luce. Jason, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Well, thank you so much for coming up from Indianapolis to join us tonight. You are back home in a sense because you were once an intern here at Asher Agency, correct?
I am back home. Yeah, it's like a homecoming reunion all in one. I think I saw my old office, so that was neat. And it's nice to see some things haven't changed, but other things have. So it was definitely a cool experience that I had working here.
So when were you here as an intern, and what was that experience like? And feel free to tell the truth. It doesn't have to be all good.
Yeah, actually, no. I mean, no joke. It was a lot of fun. So I was going to IPFW. I was a communications major. I think I minored in public relations, and that's how I found my way to one of my favorite classes, which was taught by Larry Wardlaw, who has ran PR here for a long, long time. And that was just a great opportunity. He really embraced his students, and I can't even remember how the opportunity came, my way for the internship. I think it was, just fortuitous timing. And so I had the opportunity to step in, and it was one of my last semesters. And, I really wanted to potentially move into marketing and advertising, maybe PR. I had looked at, radio or television, and, during that time, you don't know what you want to do. You know what I mean? My wife said to me, she goes, don't tell people you didn't have a plan, but I really didn't have a plan, and that's kind of the beauty of how our careers progress is,
Sure.
Sometimes one door opens and you walk through it. So Larry gave me a great opportunity, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
They took me on pitches, they took me on commercial shoots. I had to write press releases. I think I worked on the Subway account. I think Tim Allen Tools was one of the clients back then. So they really exposed me to a lot and different parts of the agency. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So let's continue down that path. Talk a little bit about your career path, because I was very much the same way when I was in college. Had no idea what I wanted to do. Ended up as an English major, which eventually turned into a career in marketing, but that certainly wasn't by design. Sounds like you had a similar experience. What was your original idea when you chose a college major, and how did you progress to what you're doing today?
Yeah, boy, that's a great question, right? So I grew up on the southeast side of Fort Wayne. I graduated from Paul Harding High School. I think I was... we were pretty blue collar, right? My dad was a pressman at Fort Wayne newspapers. My mom was a probation officer, but I really didn't have a concept of what a career meant. Mm-hmm. A lot of folks, it was, just making a living and getting by. And so, going to IPFW, I think for me was a great opportunity. It was also maybe a little bit of a safe choice.
Yep.
And so, as I progressed, in my career, I thought, well, maybe radio, maybe television. But then, I think sales came to me really by happy accident. I was working at a grocery store and realized that I didn't want to work at a grocery store anymore.
Yeah.
It was hard. It was dirty, and really not my forte. And I happened to through a friend get a job working at Sears. I was selling vacuum cleaners and sewing machines, of which I know very little about, but somehow I found a way to connect to people.
Yeah.
And bring people in. And, for going to school full time at IPFW, I was able to, make a decent living at it. And I realized, well, hey, why don't I try sales?
Yeah.
And it was that simple.
Yep.
No big revelation. I just found an opportunity and went with it. So I graduated in May of 2000. And through a friend of mine was able to find out that there was an opening for a job doing surgical sales in Louisville, Kentucky. And like I said, I had just graduated. I went to the interview. It was in Indianapolis. And I'm sitting there at the Westin Hotel. And the guy says to me, he goes, well, we've got this job. I need you there in 3 weeks. What do you think? And you're 23 years old and you're like, well, I said, can I have some time to think about it? He goes, no, I need your decision right now. And, so I said, okay, let's do it. You know, so I packed up everything from my little apartment here in Fort Wayne, and all I had known and took the leap and moved 4 hours away and took that job. So that was quite interesting. That was my first foray into
So how
sales.
long were you in that position?
So just about a year.
Okay.
And the real interesting thing is kind of the dichotomy, the shift of going from, realizing, hey, 2 weeks ago, I'm demonstrating the effects of a beater bar on a certain ply of carpet.
Yeah.
And the next I'm standing over someone, in a heart and lung center who's having a major surgery done.
Wow.
So it was, the impact was not lost on me.
Sure.
And it was quite the shift.
Yeah. Yeah. So after that first position in sales, where do you go from there?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And this is one of those times when you kind of question in life, like, okay, why do you make certain decisions? And I was, I'll tell you, I was homesick. I didn't know anyone in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
I was there doing the job by myself, and I just wasn't really happy. And so I had heard that job was potentially going to be cut out of the company due to downsizing. And I quit the job. It's the first time I'd ever really quit a job without having something else. And there was a life lesson in that, because it scared the heck out of me.
Yeah, sure.
I 24 by then, and I'm moving back in with mom and having to swallow a little bit of pride. And then, this is 2001. I'm looking for a job. I have a degree, but I don't have a whole lot of sales experience at that point. And so I'm combing through the sales and marketing jobs, and I find a little 3-print ad in the newspaper for a medical sales job. And lo and behold, it's in this world of workers' compensation insurance. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea what that was.
Yeah.
I knew that my dad had cut his finger, working at the newspaper and had a workers' compensation claim. And that was literally the scope of what I knew about workers' comp. But lo and behold, 20 years later, I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
So I received my first opportunity to enter the workers' compensation space for a company called PMSI, which wound up being a division of what's now known as Optum. And so I went on into my workers' comp foray, where, I did field sales, really, just, for the next probably 15 years of traveling, covering a territory, a lot of nights on the road.
Yeah.
A lot of being a road warrior, and so that kind of led me from field sales to managing some corporate accounts for my previous employer, and now into my role as VP of Sales at Home Care Connect.
And that's a recent promotion, correct?
It is, yeah. That actually happened just within the past week.
Well, congratulations. So what does that new role entail?
Well, just more responsibility. I have an opportunity. Really, what's exciting about Home Care Connect is that we help injured workers. We truly help them. We provide home care, nursing, CNAs, LPNs in the home, as well as durable medical equipment, catastrophic services, post-acute care services. So, we're all about patient care. Mm-hmm. And what's been amazing is through the pandemic, we really have leveraged technology to continue to communicate with our patients, and we do that on a daily basis. So, for me, the exciting part is that now I get to expand a sales team. We're nationwide now. We just get to grow even more. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, that's great. So a lot to dig into here. I'm going to make an obvious statement, which will show you how much I know about your world, and then ask you to save me from myself.
Sure.
But, in the environment that we were in the past 16 months, I would have to imagine that workers' comp claims went down considerably because people were doing jobs in different ways. If that's true, how did your organization pivot during that time?
Yeah, that's a really great point. So what we saw initially in about March of 2020 was a sharp decline, as unemployment soared, and it was very much an acute trend. I mean, it happened all of a sudden, and then it remained that way, remained challenged for about 3 or 4 months, and then we started to see the economy rebound. And myself, like a lot of folks, I think, thought, well, hey, we've made it through the pandemic and we're to the other side. And while that might have been true from a workers' comp and an employment standpoint, certainly the market had changed invariably. So it was very, very interesting to see that happen.
Yeah. So I want to back up for just a second. I took you down a path, but I should have started here. Tell us a little bit, big picture, about Home Care Connect. You mentioned it a little bit, but who do you serve? What are the products and services, if you will, and how do you interact with your customers?
Yeah, so we service the workers' compensation insurance market. So insurance companies who manage workers' comp, who handle employers, employers obviously have to provide workers' compensation insurance. So if somebody gets hurt on the job and needs medical care, needs home care, that's where we come in. And we're a nationwide network, so over 20,000 providers, locally all throughout Indiana, the Midwest, and nationwide.
Okay. So number of employees for the organization and on your team, what's the size of the organization?
Yeah, so we're right at about 100 employees right now. On my team, I have about 15 within the sales realm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you're headquartered in Indianapolis?
No, actually, we're based in Winter Park, Florida, which is outside of Orlando.
Okay.
So we are, I say based there, that's where our headquarters is at. But you ask about, how we responded to COVID. And one of the first things we had to do as an organization is move everybody home.
Yeah.
And so leveraging technology was really, really critical because all of our associates now and into the future for the time being are having to work from home. Okay. So as you can imagine, that's challenging, whether for sales or operations, finance, marketing. You're doing everything virtually.
Sure. Did you have an expectation that people would be coming back into the office, and did you pull back from that? Or was that something more of a long-term plan that it was working and you were going to continue down that road?
Probably a little bit of both. I think we have office space there like a lot of our clients do, and I think our goal was to be back in office, which was supposed to happen in August. Now that's pushed to October. And, that may be subject to change. Everything like you and I were talking about earlier is in a state of flux due to this Delta variant. You have your mindset where you think that things are going to occur in a certain linear fashion. And you know what? That's life. It just doesn't happen that way. So, I think my team will tell you I'm done putting kind of arbitrary timelines on when we get back to normal or whatever that means, right? What does normal mean anymore? Yeah. So it's been an interesting shift. We've also seen that a lot of our sales reps go to conferences. Those have we thought those were starting to open up, and they were for a while. Especially in places like Florida, it's turned into, unfortunately, a breeding ground for more infections. So, look, we've had to, work from home, be creative about how we engage our clients, and be really cognizant of how we leverage tools like LinkedIn. Yep. And that's why it was really, the timing was great when I took your LinkedIn class, which was incredibly helpful, because we know that medium is helping to deliver the message of a lot of sales teams and a lot of marketing teams, build a company brand, tell the story for us, tell patient stories. So absolutely critical to leverage technology.
And I know that you are a big believer and practitioner of social selling. Help me define that for the audience. How do you define social selling, and how do you deploy it at Home Care Connect?
Yeah, well, I think it's an evolving thing, right? Mm-hmm. When I took over a year ago, our team did a little bit of it, but now I think as they've gotten an education or kind of some push from me as well as our marketing team to be more vocal, to be more to contribute more, to put content on LinkedIn, to grow their personal brand. And it's like I tell our folks all the time, if you stay in this particular industry, which workers' compensation sales is kind of a niche within healthcare, but if they stay within this, not only do they help us build our Home Care Connect brand, but they build their personal brand. So I think what's really exciting is in the coming year or so, we're going to be evolving, our video storytelling. We're going to talk about our company culture, which is pretty unique and exciting, and really helping to connect to our customers through LinkedIn as one of those tools.
Sure. Are there other social media tools that you're using regularly? Or is it pretty much focused on LinkedIn and video content?
I would say it's mostly LinkedIn.
Yeah.
We use Facebook a little bit, but kind of like you talk about in your class, it's more of some of these are more B2C.
Sure.
Type platforms as opposed to LinkedIn, which is more B2B. And it's really amazing. I think you've seen a lot of change in that app just in the past year and a half in terms of legitimacy. I mean, it used to be, one of those apps that, I think the mindset of the layman was, hey, it's my online resume or it's my, way of connecting to old colleagues, or it's Facebook for business. But to me, it's really none of those. It's maybe some of that, but it's really telling your story, telling your brand, and people follow people on LinkedIn, not necessarily companies.
Yeah, it's become, I think you're right. The reputation was, well, if I'm looking for a job, it's relevant, but otherwise not really. And now people are saying, well, when I'm looking to solve any problem in my professional life, whether that's finding a job or finding a vendor or, finding someone who can help me solve a problem, that's where I'm going to go, and that's where the opportunity is. You mentioned your marketing team. One of the things that's intriguing to me about your background is while this is the Asher Marketing Podcast, there's obviously a lot of overlap with sales. So tell me, in your mind, what does that overlap look like, and how does that manifest itself in your organization?
Yeah, well, that's something that's evolving, and that's what's really exciting. Working for a company this size is that we're living through kind of this litmus test of COVID-19, which has helped to refocus our sales and our marketing strategy. For one, we from a sales perspective have limited access, where we had that personal connection before, where we could build relationships in person. That's changed altogether. So it's become the Teams call or the Zoom call. And I call it really a digital bottleneck, which is what we face in that, previously, if you wanted to get the attention of a client, you would deliver a message. A lot of times it was an email blast or, an outreach where, it's more of a general message to lots of folks, where I think now we've had to change that approach to where it's more of a targeted message, and more of a subset of clients that we're reaching out to, because, honestly, our clients don't have the time to look at thousands of emails. They're already getting that. So vying for their attention, telling our story, telling our brand pitch is very challenging.
Yep. So in terms of how you interact with the marketing folks on your team, what are some of the things you do collaboratively? Where are there some boundaries and borders where, the marketing side does this and the sales side does this and never the twain shall meet? What does that look like in your organization? Yeah,
we're pretty collaborative. I'm not over the marketing team, but they are great about, delivering, ideas for themes for that month. Maybe it's, ideas on certain products that, we used to be able to hand out a lot of physical items, right? You'd be able to hand that out to an insurance adjuster or nurse case manager. A lot of that is altogether changed. So we rely on marketing to really shape our digital content, to do storyboarding for LinkedIn. We have all of that planned in advance. So that's nice, but it's still evolving. Like I said, we haven't really gotten into the video content yet. Looking forward to being able to tell patient stories to really connect to our clients, because we have a very unique difference in our organization. We're very clinically focused. So a lot of players in our space, you have call centers, folks that take your referral that are not really trained to take those referrals. So we have nurses that are picking up the phone. We have 24/7 access, true 24/7 access. We're all based in the United States. So it's a different experience, but it's one thing to be able to, tell a client that, and it's another to actually have them, use and experience your brand. So we're working with marketing, to your question, to find new and creative ways to stay relevant.
Yep.
We've done some continuing education sessions. We have done ongoing touch points with our clients, just check-in calls, really.
Yeah.
Because a lot of our clients, they were used to being in a social environment. Mm-hmm. Now they're working from home, and they feel isolated like we do. So a lot of times it's just a matter of, reaching out and have that personal conversation.
So how important is a CRM to your work? Is it a factor? And if so, how does it play into the work you're doing?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And we use Salesforce, and that's not a pitch for Salesforce, but I'd say it's pretty standard and what a lot of folks use. I think one of the expectations that, we had hoped in our partnership, that actually we've been with them for about a year now, was that they would have a tool to maybe help us be smarter about leveraging our website and understanding, who goes on it, who engages with it. We haven't really seen the full effect of that yet, so we're working to evolve that. But yeah, in terms of CRM, Salesforce helps us build a pipeline, define what that looks like, define that in terms of revenue, opportunity, close date, you name it. And it also obviously is a repository for keeping, client information, and which is, absolutely vital right now.
Yep. And capturing that and making it available to the organization, especially important when you have a distributed workforce that might not have the opportunity to talk to each other on a daily basis. Yeah.
But I think it's going to be, all the more important that for those CRMs to evolve to help the home-based seller in the future. I know, again, this is not a unique problem for my industry in workers' compensation sales. It's across the board. It might be pharmaceutical, healthcare in general. How do you connect to people when you're sitting at home and they're sitting at home?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So with your recent promotion, what are some of the things you're working on? Where are you spending your time? And I know some of it might be to be determined because it just happened a week ago, but what are some of the things that are important to you moving forward?
Yeah, right now, it is hiring and building scale. Our business has grown by leaps and bounds.
How hard is it for you to find people right now?
It's challenging. It's really challenging. So while we've grown 30% year over year, which is really, really exciting, finding talent is challenging.
Yeah,
it really is. I've been in this industry for 20 plus years. And when I do interviews with folks, it is surprising how challenging it is to. I thought that I would have hundreds of resumes to go through, but I don't know if it's COVID or what. But people, I think, are a little more reticent to make a change right now. They're unsure about what this home-based selling environment looks like, and I just think reluctant to step outside their box, step through that door.
Is it generally true that you're recruiting someone to come on board who already has has a background in sales, or is it people who might not yet have a career path and you're trying to get them to consider sales as a career path?
In our case, I think you have to have experience. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be as old as me with as many gray hairs, but I think we definitely look for folks that have an existing network, an existing black book, but who can be creative and leverage technology and are not intimidated by having to sell in new and creative ways. For example, right? Not only are we doing the video calls, but to get folks out of their homes, to connect with clients, to stay relevant. A lot of my sales reps have done, creative like boat cruises and Top Golf nights, and which is all great and fine, especially when it's warm. But I've got sales reps in New England and, folks in New Jersey. And so as it gets cold and folks don't want to safely be outside, we have to, again, continue to be creative. So we have to find folks that have a really good attitude and who can say, okay, COVID may have tied both hands behind my back and one of my legs, but let's use the other leg to figure out how to move forward.
Yeah. So hiring is something that's on your plate, and telling the story of the organization as an employer, that employer branding piece to attract different talent. What are some of the other things you're working on?
Yeah. So in addition to scaling and marketing, we're really looking at measuring effectiveness of our efforts. Right. If we're spending time, within our CRM, how do we effectively define, how do we measure our results? And so working with the CRM and our system to define that's really, really critically important. I think understanding customer and buyer behavior is something we're digging into more. And then, I think as we move into the coming year, doing a couple of things, really getting more involved in charitable foundation and charitable work. That's certainly one of my personal goals, and I think our goal as an organization, and telling that story, of course, on LinkedIn, and then also really defining our culture. We're, like I said, we're about 100 employees right now, but we have more and more folks that want to come work with us. So how do we build and continue to build a really an engaging place to work? So
in addition to it being the right thing to do, what's driving the increased interest on the charitable side?
I think it's just the evolution of the brand. More folks within our space know us. Like I said, we've grown by 30% year over year, leaps and bounds. So, it's something that, I know all of our ownership team is passionate about, and our sales team is too. They see that as part of the employee experience, right? Yeah. It's not just working at a place and punching the proverbial clock. It's especially, I think, with a lot of the hires that I'm talking to now, some of the younger folks, they want to make a difference. Yeah. They want to see impact. And I think doing so in multiple communities is really important. Like I said, we're based in Orlando, but I'd love to be able to do that right here in Fort Wayne or Indianapolis or, for any of our, 15 sales reps in their markets too. So making impact is critical.
Does the organization have causes of choice, or is it a little bit varied in terms of what it supports?
Yeah, it's really varied right now. There are some we support. There's a group called Kids Chance, which supports sending children of injured workers to college around the country. That's one, but I wouldn't say we have any really exclusive kind of partnerships. That's something that's really evolving and changing.
Okay. So I'm going to pivot to the speed round of the show where we go over a couple questions. I'm actually going to throw you a curveball with one. So
all right.
The first one is not a curveball. It is a softball. In terms of career path, you settled into a career in sales pretty quickly, but you had some bumps along the road, and certainly didn't have that as a plan from the outset of your college experience. What's the one thing you've learned about being successful in your career that you want to pass on that you think other people should know about?
Boy, that's a great question. And that's something that I talk to my kids about all the time, and I'll actually attribute this quote to my father-in-law, Steve Garish. He always says, basically, don't get in the way of your own success. And I think by that, I interpret that as your brain can be your biggest friend and your biggest foe.
Sure.
And you can talk yourself out of a lot. Yeah. So don't try to convince yourself that you can't do the job. Don't sell yourself short. And what I tell my kids all the time is, hey, it's going to be somebody, so it might as well be you. Yeah. So take a chance, see what's on the other side. You never know until you try. And guess what? If you fail, at least you can say, I tried, I gave it my best effort. And so, put your foot out there. Take a chance.
Yeah, and you probably learned something along the way too. So
you learn a lot along the way. A lot of times you learn the things to do and the things not to do, the person you want to be and the person you don't want to be. And it all comes with experience. I'm pretty sure I think I knew, or I thought I knew all that at 23 when I was sitting down the hall here at Asher. But I'll be 44 here in another few weeks, and so I can safely say, I think I've learned a little bit.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. All right. Second question. This is where the curveball comes in. What do you think are some of the, maybe one, maybe two, some of the biggest misconceptions about careers in sales or salespeople, and what's the true story from your perspective?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I think that's something that I've fought, the perception of for a long time. My dad said to me the other day, he said, it's not surprising that you've made a career by talking. And, and I can understand that, where that would come from, but I said to him, to be honest, Dad, I make a career by listening. Mm-hmm. I listen to folks, and I think that's really the advantage. I think there's the perception that salespeople are trying to take advantage of their client, yep, or that it's easy money. Yeah. And I can attest to you, it is none of that. Yeah. If you're going to build a career in sales, I think you have to be willing to sacrifice a little bit, yeah, especially if you're in go my route where you have to spend a lot of time traveling. Yeah. There is sacrifice away from home.
Oh, sure.
And the biggest challenge, especially for, I'm a father of four, so, making time to be involved, yeah, with a family is really, really critical.
Yeah.
Right. And so, the other thing from a sales perspective is that we're about relationship building. Mm-hmm. Especially in my industry, yeah, it is not a commodity-driven industry. And yeah, that's something at Home Care Connect that we really pride ourselves on, is we're about consultation.
Yep.
And if you look at your customers like a commodity, you're probably not going to be in that space for very long.
Yeah.
Because they will see you as a commodity.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you become expendable and only about price. So if you're going to be in sales, figure out a way to build relationships, and that'll take you far.
Yeah. So 4 kids. How old are your kids?
Yeah. So we're a blended family. We have 15, 14, 12, and 11.
Wow. Okay. So very concentrated.
So, yeah. Three boys and a girl. So.
Okay. All right. So I could ask for a long line of questions on parenting, but I won't do that to you. That's a lot.
Well,
wow.
I've tried my best. I'm not sure I have a whole lot of answers, but we'll see.
So last question, and you've alluded to this somewhat, but to pinpoint an answer, we're hopefully emerging slowly out of the pandemic with the colder weather coming. Who knows what's going to happen? But if nothing else, we've dealt with some uncertainty over the last year and a half. What's the one thing you've learned during that time period? Maybe something you didn't know going into March of 2020 that is going to stay with you for the rest of your career?
Yeah, well, be flexible and always be thinking about evolution. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that I've tried to pride myself on, is be willing to learn. Just like taking your class, I also read a lot of books.
Yep.
I realize that, I'm one of these people that realizes that I'll never get to a point where I can learn enough.
Yeah, sure.
Be willing to evolve. Be willing to change your strategy, mm-hmm, if needed. And most importantly, I think, especially being in sales and or, marketing, connecting with people is really, really critical. Yep. Some people say, oh, I care about folks. But really, to me, that's vital. Knowing something about where a person's from, where they went to school, yeah, what their hobbies are, kids, it's all vital to building blocks of relationships.
Yeah.
That'll never go away.
Sure.
It's just, especially as we've seen in this digital sales environment, that sometimes shifts and the medium changes.
Yep.
It's not necessarily that you're not connecting.
Yeah.
It's just the medium has been altered. So that's something that I'll always take with me, pandemic and beyond, whenever we get back to, like I said, whatever the new normal is.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So it's really relationships at the center. And, that listening piece, coming back to that theme. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah. People, from a sales and marketing standpoint, they don't buy from companies, right? They buy from people. Yeah. And that sounds like a tagline, but it's the absolute truth.
Yeah. All right. So, Jason, if people want to learn more about Home Care Connect, maybe there's a prospective employee out there for you, where should they go to find more information?
Well, that's a great point. And we are hiring right now. I'm hiring salespeople throughout the country. We're also hiring operations and clinicians teams. And, the advantage of technology is you can work from home.
Yep.
And also we have in office, when we get back to office in Florida, we do have those positions as well. But we do offer pretty flexible work-life balance. So you can go to homecareconnect.com and find out more.
Excellent. Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us, especially coming up all the way from Indianapolis to be with us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I appreciate it, Anthony.
And thanks to those of you who took the time to listen to this episode. We'll be back next week with another great guest, and we hope you'll join us then.